Hello, this is Ben Television News Roundup, a compilation of major stories in the weekend. Thank you for being part of the program. I am Tunde Alabi. Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn has described the way Prime Minister's Question Time is run as theatrical and called for a change to allow for a more constructive and adult-like debate. Jeremy Corbyn made his first Prime Minister's Question Time as Labour leader, having been overwhelmingly elected at a party conference.
Corbyn! Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank all those that took part in an enormous democratic exercise in this country, which concluded with me being elected as leader of the Labour Party and leader of the opposition. I think we can be very proud of the numbers of people who engaged and took part in all those debates. I've taken part in many events around the country and had conversations with many people about what they thought about this place, our Parliament, our democracy and our conduct within this place. And many told me that they thought Prime Minister's Question Time was too theatrical, that Parliament was out of touch and too theatrical, and they wanted things done differently, but above all they wanted their voice heard in Parliament. So I thought my first Prime Minister's Question Time, I'd do it in a slightly different way. And I'm sure the Prime Minister is going to absolutely welcome this, as he welcomed this idea in 2005. But something seems to have happened to his memory during that period. And so I sent out an email to thousands of people and asked them what questions they would like to put to the Prime Minister. And I received 40,000 replies. Now, there isn't time to ask 40,000 questions today, and our rules limit us to 6. And so I would like to start with the first one, which is about housing. 2,500 people emailed me about the housing crisis in this country. And I asked one from a woman called Marie, who says, "What does the government intend to do about the chronic lack of affordable housing and the extortionate rents charged by some private sector landlords in this country?" Prime Minister.
Prime Minister. Well, first of all, Mr. Speaker, can I congratulate the honourable gentleman on his resounding victory in the Labour leadership election. Can I welcome him to the front bench and to these exchanges. I know we will have many strong disagreements, I'm sure, between us at these exchanges, but where we can work together in the national interest, we should do so, and I wish him well in his job. If we are able to change Prime Minister's questions and to make it a more genuine exercise in asking questions and answering questions, no one would be more delighted than me. I felt last week where we discussed a substantial issue with substantial questions and proper answers was good for our House, good for our democracy, and so I welcome it. Now let me answer very directly Marie's question, because we do need to see more affordable housing in our country. We delivered 260,000 affordable housing units in the last Parliament. We built more council houses in our country than in the 13 previous years had been managed, but I recognise much more needs to be done. That means carrying on with our reform of the planning system. It means encouraging the building industry to come up with innovative schemes like starter homes. But above all, it means continuing to support the aspirations of people to be able to afford their own home, which is where Help to Buy and schemes like that come in. But I'd say to the honourable gentleman, we won't get Britain building unless we keep our economy going.
Jeremy Corbyn. I thank the Prime Minister for that answer, and I thank him for his commitment that we're going to try and do Prime Minister's Question Time in a more adult way than we've done in the past. The effects of government policy on housing are obviously enormous, and the decision made to cut, for example, 1% of the rent levels in councils and in housing associations without thinking about the funding issues that those authorities face is a serious one. I've got a question from Stephen, who works for a housing association, who says that the cut in rents will mean that the company he works for will lose 150 jobs by next March because of the loss of funding of that housing association to carry on with the repairs. Down the line, it will mean worse conditions, worse maintenance and fewer people working in it, and a greater problem for those living in those properties. Does the Prime Minister not think it's time to reconsider the question of the funding of the administration of housing, as well as, of course, the massive gap of 100,000 units a year between what is needed and what is being built?
Minister. What I would say to Stephen and all those working in housing associations and doing a good job is that I think for years in our country we had something of a merry-go-round where rents went up, housing benefit went up, and so taxes had to go up to pay for that. And I think it was right in the budget to cut the rents that social tenants pay, not least because those people who are working and not on housing benefit will see a further increase in their take-home pay and be able to afford more things in life. Now, I think it's vital, though, that we reform housing associations and make sure they are more efficient. Frankly, they're a part of the public sector that hasn't been through efficiencies, haven't improved their performance, and I think it's about time that they did.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Well, I thank the Prime Minister for that, but it leads me neatly on to what happened yesterday in the House when the House sadly voted through proposals which are going to cost £1,300 per year to families affected by the change in tax credits. This is absolutely shameful. I had more than 1,000 questions on tax credits. Paul, for example, says this very heartfelt question: why is the government taking tax credits away from families? We need this money to survive so our children don't suffer. Paying rent and council tax on a low income doesn't leave you much. Tax credits play a vital role, and more is needed to stop us having to become reliant on food banks to survive.
What we need is a country where work genuinely pays, and that's why what our proposals do are reform welfare, but at the same time bring in a national living wage, which will mean anyone on the lowest rate of pay will get a £20 a week pay rise next year. And that's why the figures show that a family... So I thought this was the new question time. I'm not sure the message has fully got home. I don't want to blind the House with statistics, but I just give you these two. One, a family with someone on minimum wage, after all our changes, will be £2,400 better off. Second statistic, and I think this is really important. If you look at what happened between 1998 and 2009, in-work poverty went up by 20% at the same time as in-work benefits went from 6 billion to 28 billion. The old way of doing things isn't working, and we shouldn't go back to it. What we've got to do is tackle the causes of poverty, get people back to work, improve our schools, improve childcare. Those are the ways we can create an economy where work pays and everyone's better off.
The Institute of Fiscal Studies says there are 8 million people in paid work eligible for benefits or tax credits. They are on average being compensated by just 26% of their losses by the so-called national living wage that the government has introduced. And so I ask a question from Claire, who says this: how is changing the thresholds of entitlement for tax credits going to help hard-working people or families? I work part-time. My husband works full-time, earning $25,000. They have 5 children. This decrease in tax credits will see our income plummet. They ask a simple question: how is this fair?
The country has to live within its means, and we were left an unaffordable welfare system and a system where work didn't pay. Now, we see today the latest set of employment statistics where the rate of employment in our country has reached yet again a record high. More people in work, more people in full-time work, and also we're seeing unemployment fall in every region of the country except the southeast, and the sharpest falls are in the northwest, the northeast and the West Midlands. What we're doing is moving from an economy with low wages, high tax and high welfare to an economy where we have higher wages, lower taxes and less welfare. That is the right answer. An economy where work pays, an economy where people can get on. And let us not go back to the days of unlimited welfare. Labour's position again today is to abolish the welfare cap. I say that a family that chooses not to work shouldn't be better off than one that chooses to work.
Many people don't have that choice. Many people live in a very difficult situation and rely on the welfare state in order to survive. Surely all of us have a responsibility to make sure people can live properly and decently in modern Britain. That is surely a decent civil thing to do. I received over 1,000 questions on the situation facing our mental health services and people that suffer from mental health conditions. This is a very, very serious situation across the whole country, and I want to put to the Prime Minister a question that was put to me quite simply from Gail. Do you think it's acceptable that the mental health services in this country are on their knees at the present time?
Prime Minister.
Well, as I mentioned before the first question, there will be areas where we can work together, and I believe this is one of them. We do need to do more to increase mental health services in our country. We've made some important steps forward in recent years. Mental health and physical health now have parity in the NHS constitution. We've introduced for the first time waiting time targets for mental health services, so they're not seen as a Cinderella service. And of course, we've made the commitment, a commitment that I hope he will back, undoing previous Labour policy. We've backed the Stevens plan for an extra £8 billion into the NHS in this Parliament, which can help to fund better mental health services, among other things. There are problems in some mental health services, and it's right we make that commitment. But I make this one point to him. We will not have a strong NHS unless we have a strong economy. And if the Labour Party is going to go down the route of unlimited spending, unlimited borrowing, unlimited tax rates, printing money, they will wreck the economic security of our country and the family security of every family in our country. We won't be able to afford a strong NHS without a strong economy.
If I could take the Prime Minister back to the situation of mental health in this country, it is very serious. I agree with him absolutely on parity of service. I hope that the spending commitments are brought forward rather than delayed to the end of this Parliament, because the crisis is a very serious one. We know this from our constituents, we know this from people we meet, we know this from the devastation that many face, and indeed some have taken their own lives because of the devastation they face. I asked a question from Angela, who's a mental health professional, so she knows exactly what she's talking about. And she quotes this: "Beds are unobtainable, with the result that people suffering serious mental health crises are either left without adequate care or alternatively admitted to facilities many miles away from their homes, relatives and family support systems. The situation is simply unacceptable." What does the Prime Minister say to Angela, to people like her who work so hard in the mental health services, or people going through a mental health crisis who may well be watching us today on Prime Minister's Question Time and want to know that we take seriously their conditions, we take seriously their need for emergency beds to be near their homes and their support system, and that we as a society take seriously their plight and are going to help them and care for them. What does the Prime Minister say to Angela?
What I would say to Angela, all those working in mental health, or indeed those suffering from mental health conditions, is that we need to do more as a country to help tackle mental health. Now that's obviously money into the health service, which we will deliver, but it's also changing the way that the health service helps those with mental health conditions. The Honourable Gentleman rightly talks about mental health beds, and they are important, but frankly so is the service that people get when they visit their GP. Many people going to our GP surgeries have mental health conditions, but actually aren't treated for those conditions and don't get access to, for instance, the cognitive behavioural therapies that are increasingly being made available. So my argument is, yes, put in the resources, change the way the NHS works, change public attitudes to mental health, because that is vital. But I say it again, we won't be able to do any of these things without the strong economy that we've built these last 5 years.
As the U.S. Republican Party draws closer to selecting its presidential candidate, frontrunner and billionaire Donald Trump has been put under pressure by other contenders. 11 Republican presidential contenders took center stage at the second Republican debate, which was held at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in California ahead of 2015 election. Jim Malone completes the report.
$1 million or so With President Reagan's Air Force One as a backdrop for the Republicans, Donald Trump was on the defensive, as in this exchange with Kentucky Senator Rand Paul.
His visceral response to attack people on their appearance, short, tall, fat, ugly. My goodness, that happened in junior high. Are we not way above that? And would we not all be worried to have someone like that in charge of the nuclear arsenal?
Mr. Trump.
I never attacked him on his look, and believe me, there's plenty of subject matter right there. That I can tell you.
There were several clashes between Trump and former Florida Governor Jeb Bush, including this one over the Iran nuclear deal and the war in Iraq.
The lack of judgment and the lack of understanding about how the world works is really dangerous in this kind of time that we're saying. So, is that the judgment that you bring to the table, that Hillary Clinton is a great negotiator, that she could bring about a better
Your
deal
brother
with Iran?
and your brother's administration gave us Barack Obama because it was such a disaster those last 3 months that Abraham Lincoln couldn't have been elected.
You know what? As it relates to my brother, there's one thing I know for sure. He kept us safe. I don't know if you remember.
The debate also featured the only woman Republican contender, former business executive Carly Fiorina, who was asked about a recent Donald Trump insult about her appearance.
I think women all over this country heard very clearly what Mr. Trump said.
I think she's got a beautiful face, and I think she's a beautiful woman.
Some of the other contenders thought there were too many testy exchanges.
If I were sitting at home and watching this back and forth, I'd be inclined to turn it off. I mean, people at home want to know across this country, they want to know what we're going to do to fix this place.
Most of those on stage were highly critical of the Obama administration's nuclear deal with Iran.
If I am elected president on the very first day in office, I will rip to shreds this catastrophic Iranian nuclear deal.
But Jeb Bush and Rand Paul said they would not tear up the agreement, and Paul warned against sending U.S. troops either into Syria or back into Iraq to confront the Islamic State.
There will always be a Bush or Clinton for you if you want to go back to war in Iraq. But the thing is, the first war was a mistake, and I'm not sending our sons and our daughters back to Iraq.
Others on stage included Florida Senator Marco Rubio, New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee, Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker, and neurosurgeon Ben Carson, another political outsider who has soared in the polls of late.
U.S. President Barack Obama has invited a 14-year-old boy who invented a homemade clock to the White House. Americans reacted with outpouring of sympathy after the 14-year-old boy's invention was mistaken for a bomb by a teacher in his school, and the police was called in to arrest him. Zlatica Koch has the report.
14-year-old Ahmed Mohammed has a fascination with science and technology, especially wires and circuit boards. He has even won awards for some of his science projects, but the one he created recently got him into trouble. He built a digital clock out of a pencil case, and he brought it to school to show to his science teacher.
It's just like this one.
But another teacher at the MacArthur High School in Irving, Texas, got spooked by the wiry device, thinking it might be an explosive, and called the police. So instead of being praised, the teenage science whiz was handcuffed and taken to a police station.
They arrested me, and they told me that I committed a crime of a hoax bomb, a fake bomb.
The 9th grader is of Sudanese descent and Muslim. His parents and other members of the local Muslim community say he was singled out because of his race and religion.
I think this wouldn't even be a question if his name wasn't Ahmed Mohammed.
But local school authorities say that in the wake of mass killings at schools across the country, they have to take every potential threat seriously.
I want all of our families and the community and the entire nation to know that our student safety is our utmost priority in Irving.
Ahmed's science project Gone Awry has sparked nationwide sympathy for the boy. President Obama invited him to join other young scientists at a White House science event next month.
We at the White House and the President himself recognized that there could be an opportunity to try to reach out to this young man and give him a unique opportunity to nurture that intellectual curiosity. I think he's going to fit in quite well with the other young people who'll be at the White House on Astronomy Night.
President Obama has been encouraging students to engage in scientific invention and has hosted similar events for school children before.
Thousands of refugees and migrants who have been refused passage to Western Europe at the Hungarian border are now heading through Croatian border to secure their new life in Europe. Hungary came under severe attack during the week when it arrested, used water cannon and tear gas on migrants who wanted to go through the Hungarian border for a new life in Western Europe.
Open order all Europe. بس انه المهم لازم تصفوا. واذا واحد اهله هنا وين؟ بالسويد مثلا بتروحي على السويد تقدري تروحي. يا جماعه بس دخلنا نرجع تقدروا ترجعوا. ما في شيء بالغصب. ما في شيء بالغصب. ما في هون شيء بالغصب ابدا مشان تعرفوا انا معكم. يعني يغصبوا؟ ما بيغصبوا. اي الراجلين. منصوره الراجل. امام كنا نروح دار مدارات.
I listen to news till this border for Croatia open, and after I take all my friends come direct to there. Now 5 year or 5 day not sleep in the streets.
Хорватские полицейские, приказ всех
I'm very happy now because we have a way to go to our hope. Because it's a beautiful country and give our people help to get the life, beautiful life. And this from Germany.
Where did you get that?
Now I get it now.
Well, yeah, let's establish what's happening right now.
This is all we have for you on News Roundup today. Thank you for being part of the program. I am Tunde Alabi, and do have a very good week ahead. Bye. As part of our continued efforts to reach the African and other ethnic communities in the United Kingdom with greater impacts and create the platform to hear your silent and unheard views in this hugely growing community in the United Kingdom, our channel, Ben TV, presents to you another live current affairs television program. Our focus on the program is to review and discuss issues around the diaspora community in the UK. The program offers you that unrestricted voice on issues affecting you in the UK. Join us live every Monday at 10 a.m. to 12 noon. Another business segment of Dialogue in Diaspora, 2 to 3 p.m. every Monday. But guess what? You know you can be part of the program. Just send us an email at bentelevisionuk@gmail.com. Dialogue in Diaspora, your voice, your opinion on our TV.